So welcome to our next What's Up Wednesday session. Oh, hold on. I got a few more people to let into the waiting room. So I am Dr. Kim Lester. I'm one of the organizers of this. So you, I'm sure, have all received one or more emails from me about various things. I will say that through this process, the admissions, if you would like me to give you, not tonight, but moving forward, individual feedback on your particular essays, I would be happy to do that. You can just email, either attach a document or just send me the link if you've got a document on Google Drive, and I'm happy to look them over. For those of you who are applying through fall visitation, just be aware that as we get close to that October 20th deadline, if I get 5 people that email me, can you please look over my essays the day before that happens? I may have limited time. I may not be able to get to all of them. So the sooner that you can get them to me, the better. Also be aware that if you ask me to critique your essays, I will critique your essays. I am not going to hold back. I am probably going to do strike throughs and add here. I am going to give you what I think is constructive feedback, but I am going to give you feedback. It is rare, very, very rare that I say, great essay, I think you're done. It does happen, but it's pretty unusual. So as probably most of you know, I am the director of pre-college programs for the Center for the Enhancement of Engineering at Virginia Tech. I do run a lot of the summer programs. So on this call, I run RISE, I oversee BVT, and then the third program that you're probably on here tonight is Pathways. I don't oversee Pathways, but many of you will see Seed's really a family, so I will get to know many of you through the admissions process, through the events that we have, and I'm happy to help. So the next thing I kind of want to talk a little bit about is, why should you listen to me? Who am I that it's worth my opinion on this? So I will say that I have done the official training to be a Virginia Tech admissions essay reader. While the bulk of your application is read and reviewed only by admissions people, and please realize nobody in the College of Engineering has any say or input in who gets offered admission or reviews your overall essay. The only part of the application that might be seen outside of an admissions person are those essays, and anyone, faculty, staff, graduate students, if they go through the training, they can be designated as admissions essay readers, and they will score them. Every set of essays is double scored. So 2 different people will read it. If there's a big discrepancy in those scores, they will get, a third person to read it. I will tell you that if I come across any essay that I recognize that has been written by somebody in our pre-college programs, I will pass on those. I will recuse myself, so I will not score anybody's essay. But I have gone through the training. I think I've done it 3 times. I literally just did one last week because they did change one of the essay questions, and I wanted to be as up to date as possible. So I do have, I am qualified in that I have done the training to score these essays. The second thing I will say is that in my 10 years in this position, I have read countless admissions essays, scholarship essays, program application essays. So I see them a lot, I critique them a lot, I give feedback a lot. It's probably thousands of essays that I have read. Just to let you know, the examples that I'm going to show you tonight, they do come from one of our summer programs, CTech Squared. That particular one is for young women. I just kind of started with those, and I've kept with those. We use the same essays for our CTech Squared application as we do for our BVT application. They're slightly different for Pathways, and I think for RISE, you only have to write one shorter essay. but I'm going to be using examples of essays that students have actually written. Please realize that even though the scoring of the essays, when you score them, you put a number on them, there's a certain amount of subjectivity in scoring essays. What I'm giving you tonight is my opinion. And I would definitely recommend that I'm not the only person that you ask to take a look at your essays. Get multiple people, take the advice that makes sense to you, use it. If it really doesn't agree with what you think, you do not have to use it, but get more than one person to look at it and realize that, like I said, there's subjectivity. When we go through the training, we actually score real live essays, and not everybody in that room agrees on exactly how any given essay should be scored. So there are variances. Like I said, if the variance is really large, they're going to have a third person score it. But different people are going to score differently. I am giving you my opinion of what the best way to write an essay, but it is only my opinion. And as I said, scoring essays, you cannot eliminate subjectivity from it. Okay. So the next thing I kind of want to ask is, and for this, you can, let's see, you could put it in the chat or you could just unmute, but let me know, what do you think, how do you think admissions actually, what are they looking for? And I'm going to say a lot of you actually attended some admissions or have heard admissions, so you should know the answer to this. So what are they looking for? Anybody? Okay, so yep, the classes that you've taken, are you really you? Kind of said twice, your grades, your GPA, that you are in leadership positions, rigor, that you are similar to VT's values. Yes, the one essay they changed now very specifically talks about VT values, but Prosim, absolutely. Impacting your community, finish the career, what you do outside of school, involvement, extracurriculars, all very good. I will, definitely say Virginia Tech, as Pedro said last week, it's holistic. So are they going to look at grades? Absolutely. Are grades probably the single most important thing? Yes, they are. And it's not just the grades, it's how rigorous your classes are, but there are a lot of things beyond that. The Prosim service, leadership, all of those things. So I think you got most of them. Let's see. So grades, absolutely. The rigor of your curriculum, that is one that I think bites people sometimes. They maybe didn't realize that they should have been taking the hardest classes that they could. Standardized test scores, nobody mentioned that, and they are optional at this point in time. So yes, if you have them and they're good, great, but not necessarily. And then some of the things that you mentioned, service, leadership, these are something that are assessed on these 4 Prosim essays, and they are what's called non-cognitive variables. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about those. They are factors that have been studied scientifically, numbers have been put to, and if you are strong in these particular characteristics, they know that scientifically it does correlate with more success when you're in college and career, even after that. Side benefit to that is that when you look at these things, you are able to look beyond, possibly people's backgrounds or opportunities or what they've had the ability to experience. So it does end up making for a more diverse pool of people at a university or college or in the job place. So as someone who's from the Center for the Enhancement of Engineering Diversity, that's important to us. And if you really are fascinated by this and want to learn more about it, William Sedlicek is kind of the researcher, the pioneer for this, who kind of described it and put it into writing. And if you just Google his name, look him up, you can dive in even further if you're just kind of interested in learning more than I'm going to go through tonight. All right, so what are the non-cognitive variables? So the first one, positive self-concept or confidence. So this is believing in yourself enough to persevere when times are hard. Independence is kind of part of that. You believe you have the confidence to be independent, to make decisions, choose things on your own, and not just kind of follow the crowd. Realistic self-appraisal. This is especially true in the academic realm. So they're looking for, do you know where your strengths are? Do you know where your weaknesses are? Are you willing to address those weaknesses and figure out how to get better and improve in those areas? Understand and deals with racism. And here they are looking for kind of neither extreme, not just like, oh, well, it's there, I can't do anything about it, and not the other extreme where you're just so angry, you're responding in ways that are not going to benefit the situation. So how do you deal with unfair situations, going through the system, finding ways that are really effective to deal with it? Prefers long-range goals to short-term or instant gratification. Looking ahead, what steps do you need to take? How are you going to get there? And there will be a question definitely about goals. Do keep in mind, they are really looking, when they're talking long-term, they're looking, years ahead. So not something that can be accomplished in a day, but really thinking about your future. Availability of strong support person. They do know, and they have studied, if you have people that you can lean on when things get tough, that's very important. It can be parents, it can be other family members, it can be teachers, it can be somebody in the community, but having somebody to fall back on, because everybody's going to run into problems, and having someone there to support you is going to be helpful. Leadership. That's kind of a given. This is especially important a lot of times for young women. For women in particular, they find that leadership experience correlates very, very highly with success, both in careers and secondary education. And demonstrated community service. And obviously, this is very core to Virginia Tech. We have our motto with Prosim, that I may serve. It is not just a slogan. It is not just lip service. I will tell you that truly the community lives that every day. And then knowledge acquired in a field. So this is really looking beyond school, beyond your academics. This is not physics or chemistry or calculus. This is really a passion that you have. And often knowledge acquired in a field, it can be acquired in an informal setting. So it could be an extracurricular, it could be robotics or something like that. But it could be, just something, some kind of art that you do, or games. Again, it does not have to be in a organized sport or field or something like that. It just shows your passion, your dedication, your work ethic to go out and learn more about and become better at something that just appeals to you. So to show you kind of how simple it really is to figure out which of these goals the different questions are looking for, we'll do another little quick exercise. So here is Vichi's essay question number 4, and it says, describe a goal that you have set and the steps you will take to achieve it. What made you set this goal for yourself? What is your timeline to achieve this goal? Who do you seek encouragement or guidance from, and how did they support you? So thinking back to those 8 non-cognitive variables. What two? So there's 4 essay questions. Each one is addressing 2 of those non-cognitive variables. Which 2 non-cognitive variables do you think that this VT essay question is looking for? So go ahead and put that in the chat or unmute and just kind of long-term goals. Absolutely. What else? And support system. Yep. So very straightforward, right? It wasn't hard to figure out that prefers long-range goals and the ability of a strong support person. The next one is one that we use for our programs. And this one is describe your involvement in an organization or a community group where you have a leadership role. How did you work with others towards a common goal? What obstacles did you encounter? And what has this taught you? So what do you think they're looking for here? Leadership. And the second one, ability to work with others wasn't one that I listed. This is the big Virginia Tech one. Not that ability to work with others isn't important. Community service. Yeah, so community strength, yes, service is what we're looking for here. So leadership and service, successful leadership experience, demonstrated community service. And yes, leadership, you want to be a good leader, not a dictator. All right, so Virginia Tech has its 4 Prosim essays. I'm not going to read them all to you. One of them I already read. I will say that this second essay, oops, didn't mean to do that. This second essay, sorry, I'm trying to move my screen a little bit so I can see everything, is the new one. So this is the one they just added. I did go to the training, so I could hopefully understand this and do a good job scoring it. But because this one's new, I don't have sort of any specific examples because we haven't had a round of application essays to kind of go through these. But I think they're kind of variations on what this question has asked before. The word count is absolutely the same. You still only have 120 words to answer these questions. So that has not changed at all. So these are those, literally, if you just Google Virginia Tech Prosim essays, they will pop right up. They're on the admissions website. They will be in the application as well, but that you can easily find them just by Googling. So now we're going to start talking kind of about the specifics, my feedback. So the first thing I will say is that you need to be thinking about what the goal, who your audience is, who's going to be reading this. Your English teacher is not reading or grading this. We are not grading on your English ability. So while it is nice to have a beautifully written essay with all of those things that your English teacher tells you to do, that's not the audience. That is not the goal of these essays. So if you can do it, great, but it is a secondary goal compared to getting the meat, getting the content across in only 120 words. So in this first essay, I won't read the whole thing, but we've got a lot of good words. Often time was the malicious villain of my daily life. Each day's limit was a constant shackle. Shackle in the passions and dreams that I wanted to pursue with my extracurricular commitments. So this person has already written 2 sentences, and I could not tell you which prompt this person is trying to answer. It should be really obvious in that first sentence. You've only got 120 words. You do not have the time or the ability to set the scene, do all of those things that your English teacher tells you. Now, I do think that you can accomplish beautiful writing in a short space. So the second one, I'm a passionate musician. Okay, so I already know that this is going to be about her extracurricular music, her passion area. Her next sentence, my guitar playing, singing, and songwriting. Okay, so I already know what she does. She plays the guitar, she sings, she writes her own songs. She's a super fan, she loves Taylor Swift. So this is getting into sort of the more, the beautiful English writing, but she has given me a lot of meat, a lot of content. Okay, she taught herself to play the guitar. So if we're looking about the steps that she's going to reach that goal, she taught herself to play the guitar. She has a spot in her school jazz ensemble. She listens to all different kinds of music. She studied at the Interlochen School of Performing Arts. She's taken music classes at the Field School. So I really know very specifically the details, the meat of what she's done. But it's also a very well-written essay. She's got that connection to Taylor Swift, so you can do it, but do not make that the goal of your essays. Please, if it's a what may come across as a boring essay because it's a lot of lists, that is probably better than the first essay that I have up here, because I'm not sure time was not the true problem, rather my pessimistic viewpoint. Then she talks about her grandmother. So I know that this essay has to do with support person, but that's about all I know. All right. So again, here's some examples of what I would say don't do. So if it asks for a long-term goal, please don't say, I don't know where I'll be in 10 years. I'm going to have a college degree in something that I like. I'm going to major in, I don't know, she's given me computer science, environmental science, engineering. I understand that you at high school may really not know what you necessarily want to major in, but you probably have some things you've thought about. So if that's your long-term goal, pick something and really describe the steps that you're going to take. No one's going to come back and look at this and say, oh my gosh, whatever their goal was, they didn't meet it or they changed their goal. That's fine. What they're looking for is that you are thinking about it, how you're going to reach it. So don't say, I don't know where I'll be. The second one, talking about being a counselor at, sorry. I'm trying to get things out of the way so I can actually see. Okay, that's better. Been an assistant counselor. Okay, I know what it is. So she's got one day you got to fix a scraped knee. The next day, a camper saying inappropriate things. So that's good, right? That's beautiful writing, but I don't know really what she did as a camp counselor. If this is about leadership, I should need to know specifically what she did as a leader and probably something beyond putting a Band-Aid. How did she deal with a camper saying inappropriate things to female staff? So I really don't know. I cannot picture what she did as a camp counselor. And that's what I really want, the specific skills, things that you did, specifically, what did you learn? All right, so here are some what I think are good examples. So here she's talking, again, first sentence, I know right away what the experience is. She worked at Subway as a manager, okay? Lists, which come up next, are a really good way of getting this information across, okay? So we cleaned, organized, and prepared quality sandwiches while providing the best customer service and quality food, okay? Then she's going to give me a list of the obstacles. You run out of bread or a particular ingredient. You get tired. You're shorthanded during a rush, okay? How does she resolve those? You got to bake more bread. You got to go run and get the, tomatoes or whatever else you're missing. Keep yourself hydrated, help each other out, okay? The most important lesson that I learned teamwork is critical no matter what you're doing. And you got to ask for it and get it, because we're going to be a lot weaker if we don't ask for teamwork. So this may not be the most, you might think, oh, well, it was just working at Subway, but I have a really clear picture of what she did, what the obstacles were, how she overcame them, and what she learned from the situation. Okay. Second essay, again, lists are great. I organized the program, the rehearsals, and the shows for a group of musicians in which she also performed. She accounted for opinions, schedules, the skills of each participant, selected cohesive pieces, times for rehearsal, created a shared online space where everybody could get it. It allowed her to improve her communication and negotiation skills, and she taught her how to pay attention to individuals in a group and therefore lead. I know I can picture very clearly what she did, what she learned from it, what those skills were that she demonstrated. It is important in all of these essays. Sometimes there can be a tendency to really focus on a very, very narrow, like you can be too big and too generic, like, I want to have a great life as my long-term goal, but you can also go to the opposite extreme and get too small. Okay, so this is someone who they were having a drive for Afghan refugees. Great. I bet there's a lot of things that she could talk about as secretary of the MSA. This whole essay is about how for one refugee drive, they had donation boxes and the donation boxes disappeared. That's one event. That's great, but you need to be looking for something bigger, something over time when you're writing these essays. Again, long-term is best. Now, this particular writer had a great experience to share, and I would not, if you read this, don't be discouraged that you don't have something kind of that escalated into something as big as this. That's okay. Nobody expects that. But she was on her youth leadership team. She listened to them, saw a difficulty, they weren't being heard. So they wrote lessons on social justice. They organized a speak out. And they actually, in the end, organized a group that attended the March for Our Lives. This one's a few years old now. And then what has that taught me? Youth voices matter. So this is a great example of, yes, she started with a small instance where she listened to people say, my voice isn't being heard, but she really extends it over time. And so that led to this, which led to this, which led to this. So the more long-term you can make it, the better off you're going to be. Please make sure that you answer the question, and I will say that you answer all of the questions. So you notice that every one of those prompts doesn't have one question, but it has multiple questions. And I've even heard this directly from admissions. The best scores are going to go to those students that, although it's not required, I would highly encourage you to answer each one of the individual prompts, okay? Each question on there. So again, I've had students, if you're asked about leadership, do not answer, I haven't had a leadership position, because no opportunity has become apparent to me. If that is the case, you were not looking. This is going to get you a very bad score on your essay. If you're talked about long-term goals, do not say, I lack a specific vision of my life in 10 years. This next one, there's nothing wrong with it. And I think if you were talking about service, this would be great, service and teamwork. But this particular essay was the leadership essay. Nowhere in this essay do I see any indication of leadership on this student's part. I see lots of great teamwork. I think it is really, really good service as someone who hikes all the time. But it is not apparent to me, so they're trying to clear the rocks. It starts raining. They kept encouraging each other and they got the job done. I don't see anything about leadership in this particular essay. Another thing, and this may be a little more me, I'm not sure that all essay readers are as critical of it as I am, this especially happens in essay number 2, where they're asking you about a time where you couldn't express yourself or have your opinion heard, or you saw that happening to somebody else. So this is I think, a really easy place to start blaming other people or putting them down. I will say, and there's nothing wrong with an essay on this topic, I cannot tell you how many essays I've read about girls on the robotics team and how the boys do not listen to them, put their ideas down, belittle them. And what I will say is all of these things may very well be true. But if you're writing, they belittled me, they didn't listen to me, those statements are opinions. And what you really need to think about is how can you show me that they didn't listen to you, as opposed to telling me, because saying they didn't listen to me, they belittled me, those are judgments, those are value statements on your part. So it is much better with these essays, I think, to state objectively, what did that look like? So some examples that I think of things you shouldn't do. This first one, although winning, motivating, and encouraging was critical, it was equally important to build teamwork and develop others, particularly weak players. It is a judgment that these players were weak. Our school was unwilling to participate, okay? So again, you are blaming the school and saying they are unwilling. You can say that the school chose not to support this event, but unwilling is a judgment. This next one is one of my favorite ones. My path is different because I think my friends care more about making money than changing the world. That is your opinion. That is your judgment. I've noticed that the faster and better athletes are given special treatment. Again, you can flip these. You can say that the athletes, the faster athletes, tell me what that special treatment is that they get that you are not getting. The president of the 4-H dog club, the adult leader was very controlling despite not knowing much about dogs or the club. Show me what that looked like. What's an example of when they were controlling or that they didn't know anything about dogs or how the club operated? So here's some, I think, ways of, again, stating these things objectively. So my travel volleyball coach has not shown my team respect, and he's treated us unfairly, and now she's going to show me how. He didn't attend practices or important tournaments. He's shown up late to practice, and sometimes he doesn't even let us know that he wasn't going to be there. So she has proven to me, she's shown me that, yeah, this coach is not being respectful. And again, I often see, I was the best player, but they didn't let me play up or on the club team or on varsity. This student, I think, put a really good spin on that. She didn't make the varsity team, so she stayed on the JV team, and it allowed her to really help mentor the younger, inexperienced players. And this one, again, this is a variation on what I very often get. So instead of saying, they didn't let me participate, or they only wanted, me to do the menial tasks, she gives me something very simple. I observed the boys were designing the robot and the girls were given tasks like filing, drilling, and cutting. So now she has very specifically shown me what was happening in that club. Okay. Do make every word count. You only have 120 of them. So if this first one we took about, she talks about leading a presentation. So she says, tasked to lead a presentation. I didn't know the word presentation comes up many times. Previously, we had created presentations, despite feeling nervous about presenting. I didn't feel qualified enough to present. I produced a presentation. We could get rid of, if someone sent this to me, I would probably put strike through a whole lot of these first few sentences and just say, for one of my first big leadership roles in GSA, I had to create a presentation. We can skip a lot of the next part that comes up. This next one, we talk about being creative a lot, okay? My family's influenced me to creative. I love to create and design new things. My passion is art. I love it because I can use it to express my creativity. So she's now said creative, creativity 3 times. I just need that once. Some other techniques to make every word count is don't restate the prompts. The reviewers know exactly what's in the prompts. They are going to start looking for that material right away. So you can assume that they know what's going on. And again, very often your English teacher is going to say, do make sure that you restate the prompt in an essay. That you do not want to do it here. You've only got 120 words, and restating the prompt, every time you restate a prompt, that is wasting some words. So that a time that I felt aspects of my life were operating against me was when I was struggling in math class. Just start by telling me that you were struggling in math class. Get rid of all the rest of it. Get straight to the point. Do not tell me, I've tried a lot of hobbies. I've done knitting, crocheting, softball, volleyball, but none can compare to the feeling I get when I play the piano. That is very nice writing. But if you only have 120 words, just start off with, I love playing the piano. Same thing here. I was very passionate about lots of sports. The most is cycling. Just tell me about cycling. Another thing that many, many students have been taught to do, shown to do, is using quotes. This is about you. This is your opportunity for admissions to know who you are, feel a personal connection, stand out to them. So don't use somebody else's words, okay? Don't use only your words. So I don't want a Socrates quote. I don't want a Gladwell quote. I don't want a Gandhi quote. Not the place for it. I think, again, this is especially true for young women when the essay that asks about kind of your passion outside, what else do you do? Don't be afraid of kind of what feels like bragging a little bit, okay? And again, I think the other thing that I like to point out on this slide is that this does not have to be a organized extracurricular, okay? The 2 people in this essay, I think these are very good essays. So this is someone who loves art. She just goes and gets the rocks. She does rock painting. She does it with the neighborhood kids. She made a garden with it. She takes classes. She visits art museums. So none of this is, an organized extracurricular club, but I think it's pretty obvious that she is passionate about this and how she has developed this passion. Same thing with video games. They're not in a gamers club, but she's talked about the games she plays, the different platforms, how she's working with, I don't even know what these things are, Unity and Roblox Design Studio. She's developed some of her own games. So do not be afraid of being an expert, and do not think that it has to be in an area that that is a formal, organized group or club, or even something that you have paid to take lessons in. The internet's an amazing thing, and you can learn a whole lot from videos on YouTube. Consider varying essay topics. So again, this is your chance to show admissions as much about yourself as you can. So take advantage of the opportunity. You have 4 different essays. Consider highlighting 4 different things about yourself. It is common. I've seen it plenty of times, and I don't think it's an issue to have 2 essays that are kind of on the same topic, but maybe one of them highlights your service, one of them highlights your leadership. So I think it's fine to have 2 essays on the same thing. I would never have 3 essays that cover the same topic. So this person, it is obviously all about sports. Okay. Her leadership, she was co-captain. I'm not even sure. Over the years, I participated in many sports. I think this was her being treated unfairly essay. And then essay 3, something she's passionate about, keeping her body fit and healthy. Okay. These are all kind of the same thing. Another thing I will point out is that when we go through the training, we are basically told that if you're looking for leadership, and essay number 1, I don't remember which one, if essay number 1 is about leadership, you are supposed to look beyond that. So if essay number 3, in addition to essay number 1, talks about leadership, you are to give them credit for both places that it is mentioned. So again, I would just encourage you, when possible, to use different topics on the 4 different essays, because this is a chance for you to showcase all of who you are. You will notice that on the Virginia Tech essays, not one of them asks about engineering, and that makes sense because it's not just the College of Engineering, it's all of our different colleges. I will say that engineering, or the major that you're applying to, it frequently comes up on the long-term goals question. But it is perfectly fine and perfectly acceptable that you literally never mention engineering or whatever major that you want to go into on the Prosim essays. Will not count against you. Again, those reviewers, they don't even know what major or college you applied to. So there's no way they could hold it against you, because literally the reviewers, all they see are these essays, and none of those essays are going to explicitly say, what do you want to do? What major you want to go into? What career are you looking for? Although, like I said, it is often written about in the long-term goal question. This one, if you are going to write about long-term goals and it's going to be a career goal, please be specific when you're writing that. So this person, environmental engineering and environmental science. Okay, specifically improving water quality and soil conservation, preventing runoff in the water system, plastic pollution in the ocean. She wants to eventually own her own environmental consulting business. She's going to get a law degree so she can work on intellectual property rights. Now, you're probably looking at that going, wow, because it's amazing that she knows exactly what she wants to do. I really don't know. But as I said earlier, there are probably some things you've dreamed about or thought about that you might be interested in doing as careers. So long-term goals, pick one of those. I tell people, like, close your eyes, envision yourself in one job that you think would make you happy, and describe this one. No one's going to come back and ask you. What they're looking for is, have you thought about those goals? Do you have an idea of what they look like? Do a little research. Google particular careers. Have you thought about the specific steps that you are going to have to take to reach that goal? Do you need a master's? Do you need a PhD? What major goes along with that? What else might you need to do? So it doesn't even matter what the specific goal is, but be as specific as you can, and then figure out what those steps are. I think I said this. This essay is, again, I really think, try to be specific. This is someone that I think she wasn't very specific, but she still was able to give me details, so I still liked it. So she talked about that she was going to both get a bachelor's degree and graduate studies. She knows that she wants to be working in a lab setting. She wants to be in a team setting. So I felt like, although I like more specific than this, I think she still did a good job at being able to kind of paint me a picture of where she wanted to be. Another good thing that I think helps with that long-term goals essay, and I see this a lot, if you could take out the word engineer or computer scientist or whatever it is, very often you can take out that one specific word and literally, I don't know what you want to do in the essay. So for example, this person, in 10 years, I envision myself as, we could literally put anything in here: photographer, journalist. She gets the bachelor's. She works for some place that encompasses her values, goals, and passions, collaborating organizations that bring about change. Money isn't that important to her. She wants to be a positive influence in society. Again, any field you want to go into can accomplish those goals. So take a look critically at your essay. If you can pull out engineer or computer scientist or biomedical engineering, whatever it is, and nobody can tell what it is you want to do, you really need to be a lot more specific. And I see this a lot. Let's see, I talked about these, I talked about this. Oh, that essay number 2, which used to be the resilience essay, and now it's a time when you weren't able to express yourself. This is a really good place to address an academic weakness, okay? If there was something that happened that, you ended up getting that lower grade in calc or something like that, again, they're not going to look at the Common App essay. You need to get that information out. These 4 essays are a good place to do that. And as I've said on other of these online sessions, if there is something on your application that admissions is going to look at and they're going to consider it a weakness or a red flag, you need to explain it, and they're not going to miss it. That's their job, to evaluate these essays. So although Virginia Tech is not going to look at the Common App essay, which is under the writing tab, if you scroll down past the Common App essay box, it is then going to ask you, and I forget the words, one of them is about COVID, one of them is just more generically, basically, is there anything else that happened that we should know about? So, that would explain why there was a gap or a weakness or something going on. If you, broke your leg and you were home, if there was, a crisis in your family and somebody very close to you was very ill or, God forbid, died, and it was reflected in your classwork, do not try to hide it, try to explain it. And there is a place for that below the Common App essay. It's going to specifically ask you, or it's going to ask you in not so many words, is there anything else we need to know? Don't try to hide it. It's admissions' job to find those shortcomings, those weaknesses, address it head on. Do know that, again, we are not looking for great English essays. Grammar and spelling are not judged. That will come across in your English grades or your standardized test scores. I will admit that this can be hard to do as a reviewer. I will also say that it is rare that I see issues with this. So I think very often you, as the essay writers, are probably more critical about your grammar and spelling. And I have seen cases where, and trying to make it perfectly grammatical and worrying about spelling kind of water down the content. And you can lose the voice in the essay. And I think it's much more important that your voice and who you are come across than your grammar and spelling are not correct. I will say that if the grammar or spelling errors are bad enough to impact how understanding of the essay, that is an issue, but we are very specifically told to do our best to not judge the essays on grammar and spelling. And again, that long essay in the Common App, Virginia Tech will not look at it. So although you might need it for other colleges, do not waste time. If you're trying to get everything in by that October 20th deadline and it's coming up, do not worry about that. The other thing that I will reiterate is Virginia Tech will not look at teacher recommendations. They will not look at a counselor recommendation. So although you may need them for other schools and universities, do not worry about getting in early. It literally will not be looked at. And if you're expecting those people to explain a particular issue that you had, that's not going to happen. You have to explain the issue. All right, we're not going to do this particular exercise. I do like a longer hour-and-a-half version of this in person where we kind of go into groups. So what I am going to do at this point is I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I'm going to see what we have in the chat. Okay, so someone did send me their essay. Please email me your essay. Again, it can be in the body of the email, and I will put although you probably already have it, but I will put my email in here again, and I'm happy to look at them, but in this hour-long session, I'm not going to I'm not going to address specific essays. Okay. Is there a RISE specific essay? There is not. These are the essays that everybody applying to Virginia Tech completes. Now, I will say, again, if it reasonably can be worked into the essay, I don't think it's a bad thing to indicate that you were part of a pre-college program. I will say the most common place that I see this, again, is if you're talking about long-term goals. Very often I will see students say, this is participating in this program is kind of what made me want to pursue this goal, or this was one of the steps that I have taken in pursuing that goal. So I think it can only help if you can work in a natural way that you were part of a pre-college program. I think that's a plus, but there are no specific essays. The other thing I will say is, don't assume that the reviewer knows what RISE or Pathways or BVT or CTEC squared is. They don't, or very few of them will. So what I usually is the way to use it in fewer words is I will say VT's Pathways program, or BVT pre-college program, or VT's RISE program. Because again, you want to try to use as few words as possible as you're doing that. So would you say that attending the fall visitation increases the chance of getting admitted? I will say that if you meet those academic criteria that were listed, the GPA, the grades, the rigor of the curriculum, your best chance of getting an offer is through fall visitation. So if you meet all those eligibility requirements, I think that your best shot at getting an offer is to go through the fall visitation program. Is the registration? No. So I've gotten a number of emails about this recently. The fall visitation registration is not open. There are 2 fall visitation events. The first one is the September 23rd. That's just for CTEC, and I did a separate essay writing for them. And then for BVT Pathways RISE, that's November 11th. I doubt that I will get the registration link and the specific information about the November 11th fall visitation definitely until after the 23rd, the first fall visitation has happened. I promise that as soon as I get that registration link, I will get it out to you, but I can't get it out to you until they send it to me. And typically they don't think about the November one until the September one is all complete. So there's no, it's not out there. I will say that I did do a specific session like this for fall visitation. And you will get an email tomorrow that'll say, hey, we just had this session last night. The recordings for all of these sessions are in the same folder. It's the What's Up Wednesday folder. So there is a fall visitation. Be aware that the other program that I lead, CTech Squared, their fall visitation in September actually looks quite different than the fall visitation in November for BVT, Pathways, and RISE. So please make sure that you're not looking in the CTech fall visitation folder. Because I also put the slides in for those, it's in a subfolder, the fall visitation information. Should you have our long-term goals be infinite? You should have them be finite. One of the additional prompts that they give you is, what is your timeline to achieve this goal? So I would say, sorry, my dog just made a funny noise. You should have a specific, I plan on achieving this by this date. So definitely finite. So what is admissions really looking for in our response to question 2? So we've never had this one before, so it is a new one. Again, this is one that they did change in response to the Supreme Court ruling that came out saying that race could not specifically be used in assessing admissions. So I'm going to let you make the inference from there. I will also say that Virginia Tech is definitely still dedicated to having a diverse student body. We believe that that is the best kind of student body to have. But, so I think that situations that, and again, this is just my opinion, do not go back to anybody and say, she said. I'm not speaking for admissions, I'm speaking for me. I definitely think situations where in engineering, a very male-dominated field, there were issues being a female, issues being a minority. I think those are strong topics, but I think this can also be interpreted very broadly. So I would not limit it, and I would just, again, I would use this as an opportunity to show admissions who you are. Is the additional information portion in the general Common App? Yes, the additional information is not part of the VT specific. It is part of the general application. So on the Common App section, there's a writing tab on the left. If you click on that writing tab and scroll all the way down, you will find it. It's part of the general Common App. And I think there's a writing tab. Oh, Virginia Tech, on the Common App, there is a place where you can enter course grades and stuff like that. Do not waste your time on that unless someplace else that you're applying needs it. Virginia Tech, once you submit your application, you are then going to follow up and have to complete something called the SRAR, the Self-Reported Academic Record. That is the only place that they're going to look at grades for you. Virginia Tech is not going to look at the Common App tab that asks for grades and scores and things like that. It's totally separate. So somebody else might need it, but don't waste your time if you're just getting the Virginia Tech application in, unless another school that you're applying to needs it. Are C's in STEM classes fine? No, C's are not fine. And if you're applying to engineering, they are even less fine in a STEM class. They are going to look very heavily at your STEM classes. You had a C in algebra in your sophomore year. I will say that it is better if you're going to get a C in any class It's better to get it earlier rather than later. You got a C in algebra, that better either be in one of your Prosim essays, why that happened and how you solved it, or in that, is there anything else I needed to know? And the fact that you've had stronger grades since then is a very good, that's the best case scenario in terms of a C, but our C's are definitely going to be frowned upon, especially if they're in a math class. You know, a C, if you're applying to the College of Engineering and you got a C in your Spanish class or your personal finance class, which I have seen both of those, that's the better place to get a C, but they don't really like to see C's at all. Yes, I will be sending out the recording for this session. Actually, I've tried to delegate that a little bit. So the coming up, the reminders and the links to the recordings will be in the follow-up email, and they will be coming from Julia Chen, who is one of the graduate assistants in our office. So yes, I will also send out the recording of this session. With other people or those who might be interested in tech, you are going to have the links to those folders. And if you want to share those with other people, I'm not going to stop anybody. I will say that we also have a Seed YouTube page, and we did put all of the recordings from last year, and a lot of that information is still the same in a public-facing Seed YouTube page on the What's Up Wednesday playlist. So they can also go and look at those, but nothing I'm saying here is secret or can't be shared. Does the SRAR only get released to be filled out after our application has been submitted? Yes. So the way it works is you submit your application, and this is why your application needs to be submitted a week ahead of time, and then there's a final deadline a week later. You submit your application, you are going to get an email back within 72 hours. And if you do not get an email back within 72 hours, email me. And that email is going to say, great, thanks for submitting your application. Now you need to set up your applicant portal. So and then you're going to set up your applicant portal, and that applicant portal is going to have the link to the SRAR. It's going to have the link to the to the scholarship application. And finally, it's going to have the official offer or the official decision, not necessarily an offer. There's no guarantee that it's an offer. The official decision, which will happen. I don't know. They haven't given us, they didn't give us a date. Historically, it's been like the third week of February. Now this varies. You're going to get, if you come to fall visitation, you're going to get handed a paper letter on Sunday the 12th with a decision, but the official decision will come electronically through your applicant portal, and that will not happen. I don't know. They haven't given us the date. Historically, it's been the third week of December. What they said last week was because they've gone from 3 plans down to 2 plans. They're just not sure how that's going to run, so they don't want to give a specific deadline. Getting 1 C, even if it's in a STEM class, does not void your eligibility for fall visitation. Okay. Again, no more than 3 C's is what they put in there. Now, I will say, if all 3 of those C's are in math classes, that's probably not going to fly. But, if one of them was your C in algebra when you were in 9th grade and the other 2 were in Spanish courses, that's still borderline, but it does not void your eligibility to participate in fall visitation. Do I need to use fancy language in the additional info session? Is it fine to have a more serious tone? I would expect that the information that you're sharing in additional information is serious information. If it was serious enough to affect your grades, your personal life, I think you should probably take a very serious tone in that section. All right, that's all that I can see in the chat. I'm happy to answer any more questions, or if it's easier just to unmute and ask me a question, I'm happy to do it that way as well.
Hi, this is Anne Marie. I wanted to clarify something. So if you're explaining this,
Anne Marie, did you have a question?
I did. Can you hear me?
If so, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
You might need to put it in the chat.
Okay.
If you have a good reason for C's in STEM classes, it may not be enough to have a good reason for it. Put it in there. Again, you cannot have more than 3. And if they are in STEM, if you got 3 C's in STEM classes, that may not fly with admissions. I think, as I said in the fall visitation one of the difficulties is that admissions doesn't, I don't have your application. I could look up your application, but I'm not going to do that for every single student. There have been occasions where admissions does not tell me until a day or 2 before fall visitation takes place that one of my pre-college students doesn't qualify for fall visitation. So you can try, but you have to be aware that they might say, oh, sorry, you don't meet the qualifications. And that's especially true like with the rigor statement, because they interpret rigor. So I've heard some really good reasons for low grades. And unfortunately, that may very well not move admissions. They get tens of thousands of applications, and there are other routes. Like if Virginia Tech is what you really want to do, and you had something very serious going on in your personal life, it may be that if that is your ultimate goal to come to Virginia Tech, you may need to do the transfer route. Maybe you go to community college, maybe you go to another 4-year institution and you transfer in. So I cannot say that it's going to be okay, even if you have a really good reason for those C's. So you will not be denied. If you qualify for fall visitation, if you meet all of those criteria, GPA, rigor of curriculum, no D's or F's, no more than, I think, 3 C's, and they shouldn't be in courses related to the major that you're applying to. If you meet all of those criteria, you are not going to get denied. You're not going to get a deny as your admission decision. They're going to say you don't qualify for fall visitation, and I don't know exactly when they're going to say that, but if you meet all those criteria and you come to fall visitation, you will get an offer, a hold, or a wait list. Okay, a B in an IB class, that is fine all day long. Absolutely. They would infinitely prefer to see an IB class and a B in that class, even if it's a STEM class. They really, having that rigor is really, really important. So a B in an IB class, no problem. Okay, they do not look at first quarter grades. They look at the classes that you are taking. So they do want to see that you are continuing even into your senior year and taking rigorous classes, but they are not going to look at the grades for classes that you're in right now. Should I explain a C+ in AP Chem if I'm applying to CMDA? I know more about engineering. I'm not sure. It seems to me that chemistry is less related to computer modeling and data analytics. It's in an AP class, which is really, really good. If there's a reason that you got that it's probably still worth an explanation, but I think that's less critical in applying to CMDA than it is to applying to engineering. And even though many types of engineering don't require chemistry currently, except for electrical and computer engineering, chemistry is required by all engineering majors, including computer science right now. That may change. So that is one reason that admissions is going to look at chemistry, even though you might think, well, computer science, you don't need chemistry for that. It is going to be required that you take chemistry or have chemistry credit in order to get a computer science degree at Virginia Tech as it stands now. And they do want to make sure that everybody is successful, that you are going to be able to be successful here in engineering. So if you had 1 C in a STEM course, the reason for getting that C is very serious. You retook it over the summer. I would 100% talk about that. That is, definitely talk about that. And there's other information. I think that's going to be a good example. It's the only one that happened, and you're going to give them a very good reason for it, and you retook it. I think that's a good example of why you exactly what the type of thing that you want to put in that. Is there anything else we need to know? I think people do understand an oops one time for something serious that might have happened. I know I also hear a lot from students right now, the teacher shortage is real. I was a middle school math and science teacher for many years. I'm not now. And so I've heard a lot of students talk about, that it was just a revolving door of teachers that they've had. So, and that obviously makes it very, very difficult to do well in a particular class, or the person who, was supposed to be teaching the math class had a history degree or something, was the long-term sub. So those are real things. You definitely want to write about them. And I think that happens, unfortunately, more and more. Does admissions look at high school semester grades or end of year grades? So on the SRAR, you can report it both ways. And it depends on how your school does it. If your school is ultimately giving you a year-end grade, that's what you report. There are some schools that their grades are all done by semester, and so you can submit it that way. So it's going to look at the grades as how your school gives them. If they're giving end of year grades, they're not going to look at semester long grades. So when you say, did you see the ranking of the school? Does that mean, I'm not sure if that means some schools rank the students by their GPA. And so you have a ranking, you're 112 out of 791 or something like that. There's no absolute ranking of schools. This is the best school and this is the worst school. And you are not going to be judged against people in different schools. You are only going to be judged against other students within your school, because every school does have different opportunities and different issues. So if you enter on if you enter your standing in the school, I'm blank out of blank, they're going to see that. But if you don't, they're not going to know. And more schools don't have rankings. Do 2 STEM Cs get you denied, even if you've been getting better grades? For example, algebra 2. That's a really, really specific question. 2 Cs is not going to prevent you from applying to fall visitation. Like I said before, it is much better if you got them early on, and then you later showed that in that same subject area, you did very well. So I don't know the specifics. Are APs okay senior year if you haven't taken any junior year? Yeah, the more of those you can take, the better. And again, you're going to record your classes. They will absolutely look at that. They want to know what you are taking senior year. So yes, it is definitely a good thing to be taking AP classes your senior year, even if you haven't taken them before. They do have school profiles, so they do know what your school offers. I was actually emailing with a student or a mom earlier today, and their child had not taken any AP courses, and I could clearly see that the school offered AP courses, and that's not a good thing for them to see. Again, these very specific, I got 2 C's in these 2 AP classes, like that's so specific. I can't give a group answer to that. It's very much individual, case by case. I am happy to look at your transcript. I am happy to give you, again, my opinion. If I don't think it's clear cut, I can also send it on to Pedro Baeza Martinez, who is the admissions person that oversees fall visitation. And he has said he is happy to give his opinion as well. So if it's questionable in my mind, one way or the other, very often I just punt it to him, and say, I don't know. So it's hard for me to give answers to super specific or to, I had 2 C's in STEM classes. It's really a case by case kind of thing. Do senior year grades till October 7th need to be reported? No. All they are going to want to know and look at senior year is the classes you're taking, not the grades that you have in there. You need to report the grades definitely, or you need to report the grades freshman to junior year, senior year, just the classes. But another thing is most people applying to Virginia Tech are going to probably have had algebra in middle school, 7th or 8th grade. I see a lot of Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. So math and languages, very often, some of the middle school courses that you took, you get high school credit for. So on that SRAR, you want to put any courses that you got high school credit for. Typically, if you have your high school grade transcript, you will see which courses those are. But I would say Algebra 1 and Geometry are the 2 most common. If you took Algebra 1 and Geometry in middle school, those grades should be reported on your SRAR because you did get high school credit for them. So if you take dual enrollment classes and you get a semester score, no, do not average them. For that, you are going to, if you are getting semester grades and that is how your school reports them, you should enter them as semester grades. And that is an option on the SRAR to do that. And there is a place for listing dual enrollment classes. So do not average grades. Don't do that. All right, last call for questions. Got one more. Is it seen as a negative if you have a rigorous course schedule for 90% of your schedule, but have an easy class that doesn't really align with the STEM field? No, that's not a negative. You should do things that you enjoy doing. If you are, taking, it's scary to me when I see someone taking 6 AP classes their senior year. No, we want whole, healthy, well-rounded people. And, if there's a photography class and you're just super into photography, please take the photography class, give yourself a break. Don't burn out in high school. We don't want to see that either. So it is absolutely not a negative to be taking one fun class and 90% AB and IB and dual enrollment or super hard classes. The admissions does not expect that you are literally just going to take as many AP or every AP that you can. If you're interested in engineering, you better have the calculus. They're definitely going to want to see chem or physics. If you've got, AP computer science or environmental or some of those other ones, great. But they don't expect that you're also going to be taking world history and English lit and geography and every other AP that's out there. Do not think that you just need to take every AP possible. Think about what your major is, what your goals are, what your interests are. You do not have to take every single AP class that your school offers. how are early release and student aid accounted for in senior year? I don't know that they are going to affect anything on your application. You know, you're just reporting your classes and your extracurriculars, and you know, student aid would probably be an extracurricular, but I don't think otherwise that's necessarily going to affect your reporting. Does a high SAT score make up for some lower grades? It can definitely be helpful. If your grades are okay, but not stellar, or there was some, you know, particular area and you've got just wonderful SAT scores, yes, it can help compensate. It's not going to compensate for 4 C's, but it can compensate for maybe a whole lot of B's and a C. The average freshman engineer SAT and SAT scores for the entering class of 2021, which is the latest we have, also knowing that we are test optional at this point in time, and at least for the next 2 years, was 695 math and 659 reading/verbal. And again, it is your decision whether or not you want to submit those scores. You know, I generally tell if you have average or above average scores, submit them. If you don't, it does not count negatively against you to not submit those scores. Along with distance learning, since I'm taking AP, CS through virtual, yeah, I mean, there are virtual courses. You're going to record those just like you do the other courses. I'm not sure what the question is there. Yeah, and again, if you have a very specific question, I'm happy to do my best to answer it. And if I can't answer it, refer it on to admissions. But I can't tell you whether admissions is going to give you an offer or not. I'm not admissions. They have to review your whole, you know, I know, what is it, College Confidential, and they do this rate me or score me, or like, what are my chances of getting in? I don't know. You know, I'm not going to give you that. I can only tell you, is this competitive? Is not competitive? Where do I think it's an issue? And if I can't clearly say, oh, you're fine, I think you'll be fine getting into fall visitation, or you won't be fine. If it's in the middle, I'm probably going to refer it to Pedro. Do you have to send your SAT scores to Virginia Tech through College Board? Not initially. So initially, they're not even going to look at those if you send official scores. They are only going to look at the SRAR, so you need to include it in the SRAR. If you are offered admission to Virginia Tech and you accept that admission, then and only then will you have to send official test scores if you said that you wanted to be those have official scores included, and everyone does have to send an official grade transcript. But for now, for the offer decision, for the admissions decision, it's only the SRAR. And don't put the scores in the Common App score section. They will not look at them there either. They have to be put in the SRAR, which you're only going to get after you submit your application and after you set up your applicant portal. So the question, is that virtual course part of what you list on your SRAR? Yes. Even if it's not, you know, there's certainly, you know, you can take separate dual enrollment or online. And I know there are now they've got some of those AP online. So yes, that would be listed in the SRAR if that's the question you're asking. Okay. I think we finally got it, Elizabeth. right, I'm not seeing new questions. Again, you can always email me. I try to be really fast with my email if at all possible. Definitely doing my best to help you all get through a very confusing process and giving you my best advice and help. Next week is financial aid. So we'll be sending out that information, and we've got a tentative schedule for the rest of the semester. I just need to run it by Perry Martin, who's the Pathways Director, who I work with on this, but we do have a tentative schedule, and I think we're going to go like all the way through the middle of November with these. So with that, I'm going to wish everyone a good night, and hopefully we'll see you back on some more Wednesdays.